The diner always felt lonelier when it rained. Even with the hush of chatter inside, the clink of mugs and knives on plates, the laughter of two teenage waitresses behind the counter pretending their lives weren't falling apart. There was something in the way the rain touched the windows, soft and steady, like a knock from an old memory. Jude sat in the far corner booth, the one he always took, close to the window, close to the edge of town, far enough from the world. He stirred his coffee, not drinking it. His hands weren't shaking today, not badly. That was something. He counted little victories like that, steady hands. A night without a nightmare. A breath taken without the weight of the past pressing down like a boot on his chest. Outside, the sky wept in silence. Jude had come to this town 3 years ago. No family, no forwarding address. Just a pickup truck that coughed in the cold and a box of worn tools. He fixed roofs, fences, cars, mostly in trade. No one around here had much to spare, but they had eggs, chickens, a spare tire, kindness in pockets. He liked that. It asked nothing of him but honesty and work. What they didn't ask about were scars, the ones on his hands, the one near his collarbone, the ones no one could see. Jude never gave much of himself. Just enough to be polite, just enough to be forgettable, but people watched. They watched the way he never raised his voice. Not even when the boy at the gas station broke his wrench. They watched the way he left extra eggs outside the widow's trailer during the hard freeze. And they watched the way he always sat at the same booth, always looked out the window like he was waiting for something. He was just trying not to feel anymore. But that night, something about that night, the rain, had a weight to it. It didn't fall. It clung. He saw them before he understood what he was seeing. A shape first, then two smaller ones. A woman, soaked through. Her coat didn't look warm enough. She was holding a trash bag, not an umbrella. Beside her, two girls, maybe 7. Maybe 8, twins, you could tell even from across the parking lot. Their hair was dark and stuck to their cheeks. Their dresses weren't dresses anymore, just wet fabric clinging to bone. They weren't begging. They weren't knocking. They were just standing still, like they'd been told to wait. Like waiting was safer than moving. Jude didn't move either. Not at first. The waitress, Haley, followed his gaze. They've been there 10 minutes, she whispered. I thought maybe they were waiting for someone, but no cars come. The rain got heavier. It made ghosts out of people. Jude stood up. He didn't put on his jacket. He didn't even think about it. The bell over the diner door jingled, and the sound of rain hit him like a body. He crossed the lot slowly, like approaching a deer. The woman looked up when she heard his boots. He saw it then, the kind of fear that wasn't loud. The kind that came from too many nights alone, too many doors slammed, too many words swallowed. Her hands instinctively pulled the girls closer. It's okay, Jude said, voice low. I'm not anyone. The girls watched him without blinking. One of them clutched a soggy stuffed bear. Its ear chewed half off. You can come inside, he said gently, motioning to the diner. It's warm. The woman didn't speak. It's okay, he said again. No one'll ask you anything. Still, she didn't move, so he stepped closer. Not too close, and said the words before he knew why they came. You're coming with me. He didn't mean it like a command. He meant it like an anchor tossed into a storm. Something in her eyes shifted, not fear, but something behind it. Bone-deep exhaustion. The kind that turns people into shadows. He took off his flannel and handed it to her. You'll freeze, she said hoarsely. First words, I've been colder, he replied. She didn't smile, but she nodded. That was the first time she nodded. The girls followed without a word, holding hands like their lives depended on it. Inside the diner, heads turned. Not in judgment, just in that quiet way small towns always notice. Jude led them to his booth. Haley brought towels and hot chocolate without being asked. No one spoke for a while, asterisk. The woman dried the girl's hair with trembling fingers. They let her. One girl leaned her head into the touch, eyes fluttering closed. Asterisk finally, Jude asked, "Where were you headed?" "Nowhere," she said. The word fell like a stone in a well. Jude waited. "We had a place for a while," she said quietly. "But it got taken?" Asterisk he nodded like he understood. "Because he did asterisk names?" He asked, but gently. The woman looked at him for a long moment. "I'm Mara," she said. "These are my daughters, Eva and Ilya." The names fit them like music. Delicate, strong. Jude let the silence return. Asterisk. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Asterisk. The girls slowly began sipping the cocoa. Their hands looked too small on the mugs. Asterisk. After a while, Ilya, he thought it was Ilya, slid the bear onto the table and pushed it toward him. Asterisk. His name is Brave, she said softly. Asterisk. Jude looked at the soaked thing and smiled just a little. Looks like he's earned it. The girl nodded seriously. Mara watched that exchange with something unreadable in her eyes. Not quite hope, not quite trust, but the first crumbling of a wall. Asterisk. Where are you staying tonight? Jude asked. She didn't answer. He already knew. Asterisk. You're coming with me, he said again, quieter this time. Not a rescue. Not a favor, just a decision. Asterisk. Mara looked at her girls. Then at the window. Then at the coffee cooling in front of him. Asterisk. Why? She whispered. Jude didn't answer right away. He looked outside again, where the world was still wet and shivering and tired. Asterisk. Because I've been the one standing in the rain, he sighed. Asterisk. Mara didn't cry, but her hand tightened around the mug until her knuckles turned white. Asterisk. He saw it. Didn't mention it. Some pain deserves its privacy. When they left the diner, the storm was gentler. Not gone, but softer, like it had made its point and stepped back. Asterisk. Jude opened the truck door, helped the girls into the back. They didn't resist. Asterisk. He didn't ask questions, didn't press her for details. Just let her sit beside him, shivering and silent as the wipers pushed the past aside one swipe at a time. Asterisk. It wasn't far. A little cabin outside town. Nothing fancy. A wood stove. A roof that didn't leak. Asterisk. He built the fire while the girls curled up on the couch, under the old quilt his mother had made before she passed. Asterisk. Mara stood in the doorway, watching him. You don't even know me, she said. Jude looked up. His hands were blackened from the wood. His eyes were steady. Asterisk. I don't have to. I see how your daughters look at you. Asterisk. She looked down at her shoes. One had a tear at the toe. Asterisk. Stay as long as you need, he said. No strings. Asterisk. She nodded again. That same quiet nod from the diner. The fire crackled. Outside, the rain slowed to a hush. Asterisk. Inside, for the first time in a long time, there was warmth. And 3 lives that didn't feel quite so alone anymore. The next morning, the world was washed in silver. Asterisk. Mist clung to the hills like memory, and the trees dripped quietly, shedding last night's sorrow onto the earth. Jude stood on the porch, a chipped mug in hand, watching steam rise from his coffee like breath from an old wound. The wood beneath his bare feet was damp, but solid, familiar. Asterisk. He'd heard the soft rustle of blankets inside, the cautious shuffle of feet that didn't want to wake anyone, the kind of movement that came from living in borrowed spaces too long. He didn't go in. Asterisk. He let them wake slowly. On their terms, around mid-morning, the door creaked behind him. Mara stood there, wearing the same clothes from last night. Her hair was pulled back into a loose knot, and her eyes, though still rimmed with fatigue, had lost some of their glassy fear. Asterisk. I wasn't sure if I should make breakfast, she said quiet. Asterisk. You're welcome too, Jude said, not turning. Kitchen's simple, everything's labeled. Asterisk. She stepped out beside him, arms crossed to keep warm. The air still smelled of rain and pine. Asterisk. My girls. They haven't slept through the night in months, she said. Asterisk. Jude glanced at her. They did last night. Asterisk. She nodded slowly. Yeah, they did. Neither said anything for a while. When she finally went inside, Jude let out a breath he Hadn't realized he was holding, asterisk, he wasn't used to the sound of more than one plate being handled, or the smell of toast. Asterisk by the time he came back in. The girls were sitting at the little wooden table, their feet swinging beneath the chairs. Butter smeared across toast like it was gold. Mara handed him a plate wordlessly. "Thank you," he said. Asterisk, she nodded. Always that quiet, tired nod. Asterisk later. After the dishes were rinsed and the cabin breathed its soft morning rhythm, Mara stood near the fireplace, staring at the framed photograph on the mantel. Asterisk, it was the only photo in the house, an old, faded picture of Jude as a boy, maybe 8, standing beside a tall man in uniform, his hand resting on Jude's shoulder. Asterisk, he your father? She asked. Asterisk, Jude didn't look up from the boots he was lacing. Yeah, asterisk, he a good one? There was a pause long enough to be an answer in itself. He was better than I realized. After he passed, I found his old letters, the ones he never sent. Mara nodded, as if that too made sense. The girls played quietly by the window, with a basket of old wooden animals Jude had carved during harder winters. Eva whispered little stories to Elia, each giraffe and horse becoming something magical in her mind. Watching them was like watching a fire quiet, alive, healing. Asterisk after lunch, Mara asked if she could help fix the broken step outside. Jude had been meaning to replace it for weeks. Asterisk, he handed her the hammer and watched her work. She didn't talk much, but her hands were sure. You've done this before, he said. My dad was a carpenter, she said. I used to hand him nails. Asterisk, you remember what he taught you? Asterisk, she paused, setting the nail straight. I remember everything I was allowed to. That line settled between them like dust. Later they took a walk through the trees behind the cabin. Jude showed them the creek that cut behind the ridge. The girls ran ahead, their laughter echoing like it had always belonged there. Mara walked slowly beside him. My girls, she said softly, they've always been kind. Even when things got bad, they never stopped sharing with other kids. In the shelter, they'd give away their last crayon. Asterisk, Jude smiled. Then they'd take after you. Asterisk, she gave a half laugh, half sigh. I don't know, I've made so many mistakes. Asterisk, everyone has. Asterisk, I used to think I could fix things. That if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, did everything right, the world would no. Give us a break. Jude picked up a stone and skipped it across the creek. You're here, he said. Asterisk, Mara looked at him. And you think that's enough? Asterisk, I think surviving is more than enough. Asterisk, the girls were crouched by the water now, trying to convince. Brave the soggy stuffed bear to drink from the stream. Ilya insisted he needed forest tea. Jude watched them and something tightened in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in a long time, not just pain. Not just remembering, hope. That night they shared dinner by firelight, simple food. Warm food? Jude didn't ask questions, but Mara began to offer pieces anyway. Asterisk, my husband left. When they were 2, she said, eyes on the fire. Not all at once, it was more like he disappeared by degrees. First the kindness, then the touch, then the paycheck, then just gone. Jude nodded slowly, not interrupting. I stayed. Too long, she added, hoping the girls would have a whole family. But a cracked house isn't a home, asterisk, Jude said. Some cracks let light in. Asterisk, she looked at him then. Really looked, asterisk. You say things like that, she said, voice almost amused, and I don't know whether you're trying to fix me or just keeping yourself from falling apart. He looked down at his hands. I'm not trying to fix anyone, he said. I just know what it's like to be seen only when you're bleeding. Asterisk, silence folded over them again. But this time it wasn't empty. It felt shared, asterisk, before bed. Eva asked if Jude could read them something. Anything? Asterisk, he rummaged through a box and found an old poetry book his mother used to read from. Asterisk, he sat on the edge of the couch. The girls tucked under the quilt again, Mara curled in the rocking chair. Eyes soft in the F-I-R-E-L-I-J asterisk, he read slowly. Not because the words were hard, but because the quiet was beautiful, asterisk, when he finished. Ilya whispered, Do you have dreams, Mr. Jude? Asterisk, he looked at her, startled. Sometimes? Asterisk, Are they sad? Asterisk, some of them. She nodded as if she understood. Mara met his eyes across the room. And for the first time, there wasn't a wall in her gaze, only distance closing. The days passed like falling leaves, each one soft, different, carrying some small change. Asterisk, Mara helped fix the porch railing. She found Jude's mother's old apron and wore it while baking the girls a birthday cake. Even though their real birthday had passed weeks ago, asterisk, you deserve one anyway, she said, setting the candles down. It's not about the day. It's about remembering you're still growing. Asterisk, Jude watched as the girls blew out the candles together. He didn't ask what they wished for, asterisk, but when Eva smiled at him, really smiled, missing teeth and all, he had a feeling it had something to do with staying. Asterisk, Mara began leaving her shoes by the door without thinking. She started writing in a small notebook late at night. Jude never read it, but he saw her hand trembling less as the days went on. Asterisk, he built them a bunk bed from leftover cedar in the shed. Asterisk, the girls painted stars on the ceiling. Asterisk, one evening, while the sun dipped behind the ridge in golden sighs, Jude found Mara sitting on the porch steps, her face tilted to the light. Asterisk, he sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Asterisk, I used to think the world would never stop taking, she said, but lately. I feel like it's waiting to give something back. Asterisk, Jude didn't answer. He just reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Asterisk, I want to show you something, he said. She took it gently. It was a letter. Asterisk, the handwriting was rough, deliberate. It read, to whoever you are, asterisk, if you find this cabin, I hope you're kind. I built it for my boy, but I know he won't stay forever. People like him don't stay anywhere too long. But I want him to remember that even broken men deserve shelter. Asterisk, tell him I love him. Tell him there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Asterisk. Asterisk, Mara blinked hard. Your father? Asterisk, Jude nodded. He never gave it to me. I found it a year after he died, behind the panel in the kitchen. She handed it back slowly. He wanted you to believe in something again. Asterisk, yeah, Jude said, his voice tight, and maybe to offer shelter when I could. She looked at him. You're doing that. He met her gaze, and this time the silence didn't need to be filled. It simply was. Hold on, asterisk. The wind stirred the trees around them, whispering like something ancient. Asterisk, inside. The girls were drawing by candlelight. Asterisk, and for the first time in years, Jude felt like he wasn't just surviving, asterisk, he was slowly, quietly returning. The first frost came on a Wednesday, asterisk, the morning air held its breath, and a thin sheet of white painted the grass, the windows, even the old metal handle of the shed door. The cabin felt smaller in the cold, like the past had crept back in through the cracks, whispering things both remembered and buried. Asterisk, Jude was chopping wood when he heard the screen door creak open. Asterisk, Mara stepped out, arms crossed over the flannel he'd lent her weeks ago. It still looked too big on her, but she wore it like it belonged. Asterisk, you always work this early? She asked. Asterisk, Jude kept swinging, letting the weight of the axe do most of the work. Only when I don't sleep. Asterisk, she nodded, stepping closer. The frost crunched under her bare feet in borrowed socks. Asterisk. The girls were talking in their sleep, she said, calling out, crying. It hasn't happened since that first night. Jude paused, leaning on the axe handle. It happens, he said. Sometimes the safety is what lets the fear come up. Asterisk, Mara looked at him, eyes glinting in the pale light. You talk like you know. Asterisk, I do. Asterisk, he didn't say more. Didn't have to. Asterisk, back inside, the girls were curled on the couch with hot water bottles tucked beneath the blanket. Ilya was clutching Brave again. Eva had drawn something on a napkin, a house on a hill, a truck, 3 stick figures, and a bear with big round ears. Asterisk, Mara looked at the sketch when Jude wasn't watching and folded it gently into her pocket. Asterisk, that afternoon, while the girls were napping, Jude pulled a dusty cedar chest from beneath the bed. He hadn't opened it in years. Asterisk inside were pieces of a life he'd packed away carefully, his father's dog tags, old Polaroids, and a stack of letters wrapped in twine, yellowed with time. Asterisk, he took one and walked out to the porch, letting the cold air bite his hands as he read. It was dated 15 years ago. Son, asterisk, I saw you trying not to cry when you thought I wasn't looking. I know I was hard on you. But I was trying to shape a man who could survive anything. I didn't realize I was teaching you to hide instead of heal. Asterisk, I hope one day someone sees the good in you before the ghosts do. Asterisk, Dad. Asterisk, Jude folded the letter slowly, eyes stinging. He hadn't let himself read that one in a long time. Asterisk, he looked up and saw Mara standing behind the screen door. Asterisk, I didn't mean to pry, she said. I just saw you reading. Asterisk, it's okay, he said, and surprised himself by meaning it. She stepped outside. Can I ask something? She said, voice soft. Why haven't you ever left this place? Jude thought for a long time before answering. Because I was afraid I wouldn't recognize myself anywhere else. Asterisk, Mara nodded. Asterisk, I get that, she whispered. I've been afraid of becoming someone I didn't choose to be. Asterisk, Jude met her eyes. But you didn't. You became someone who carried 2 little girls through a storm. Asterisk, her mouth trembled just a little. The snow came quiet. Asterisk, no warning, no wind, just a hush that fell over the trees like sleep. By morning, the world outside the cabin had been wrapped in white. The porch steps were frosted smooth, the roof wore a blanket of softness. And Jude's pickup sat under a layer of silence. Inside, everything felt still. Jude stirred the fire before the girls woke. The logs cracked gently, scenting the cabin with pine and something else, something like memory. He moved slow, deliberate. Not out of tiredness, but reverence. As though each motion mattered. As though this morning might be the last of its kind. Asterisk, he heard Mara before he saw her. The creak of a floorboard. The sigh of bare feet against wood. She stepped into the room wrapped in his flannel again, her hair mussed and eyes still soft. With sleep, she didn't say good morning. She didn't have to. Asterisk. They had long passed the point of needing filler words. Asterisk, Jude poured her a mug of coffee black, no sugar, and set it on the table. She took it, nodded once, and sat beside the fire. For a while, that's all they did. Sit, breathe, watch the snow fall past the windows. Like slow-motion stars, the girls woke an hour later, Alia with one sock missing, Brave tucked under her arm like a soldier who'd never left post. Eva tugged at Mara's sleeve and asked if they could decorate the cabin for winter. Asterisk, we don't have decorations. Baby, Mara said, gently. Asterisk, Eva thought for a moment. Then can we make some? Asterisk, Jude looked at her, then at Mara, and something passed between them. Asterisk, permission. Or maybe invitation. Asterisk, by midday, the cabin had paper snowflakes in the windows, pine branches across the mantel, and a row of painted rocks lined along the sill, each one named after someone imaginary. The girls insisted Jude's was called Captain. Quiet, he didn't argue. Mara made soup from scratch. Jude baked cornbread again, less burned this time. Asterisk, they ate together by firelight. Laughing, soft-spoken, close. Asterisk, and when the girls curled up under their quilt again, cheeks pink from hot cider, Mara pulled something from the shelf. It was the notebook. Hers. She handed it to Jude. Asterisk. You can read more, she said. If you want. He took it gently. Each page was a whisper. Moments inked carefully like petals pressed into paper. Asterisk. Elia said this place smells like warm dirt and old stories. Eva asked if we could stay forever. Today I made soup and didn't. Feel like a failure. Today I didn't check over my shoulder. Today I kissed their heads and believed we might be okay. Jude closed the notebook slowly when he looked at Mara. His voice was barely above a whisper. Asterisk. You're a good mother. She looked away fast, but not before he saw her eyes. No one ever says that, she murmured. Not to me. Asterisk. Well, they should have. Asterisk, she swallowed. I used to believe I broke them, dragging them place to place. Choosing the wrong man, losing everything. Asterisk, you didn't break them, Jude said. You kept them alive, asterisk. Mara stared into the fire. Some nights I didn't know if I would. I used to lie on the floor while they slept and pray the world wouldn't come. Crashing in again. Asterisk. Jude was quiet for a long time. Then he said, some of us survive by turning to stone, some survive by staying soft. Asterisk. She looked at him. And which are you? Asterisk. I was stone, he said. For years. Until you three showed up like a flood. Asterisk. She didn't laugh, but she smiled. A full one. Not polite, not guarded. Asterisk. Jude, she said quietly. Can I ask you something hard? He nodded. If I said I wanted to leave. To build a life in town. Get a place for the girls, find work, be stable again. He didn't move. Would you come with us? The question hung in the air like wood smoke. Jude looked at the girls asleep on the couch, at the fire, at her, at the life that had unfolded in the quiet without permission. Asterisk. I don't do well in cities. He said. Asterisk. I don't mean the city, Mara replied gently. Just closer to school. Closer. To people. He looked down. I built this place to disappear in. Asterisk. I know, asterisk. He met her eyes. But I'd follow you. She exhaled. Not because you need saving, he added. But because I think I do, asterisk. The wind picked up outside. But it wasn't cruel. It was just moving on, asterisk. Later that night, as Jude packed a small bag tools, a photograph, the letters. Mara stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. Asterisk. You really coming? She asked. Asterisk. He didn't look up. You asked? Asterisk. She stepped closer. You know, we can stay. I wasn't giving you an ultimatum. Asterisk. I know, he said. But I think I want to see what it looks like when I stop hiding. Asterisk. She reached for his hand, fingers brushing his knuckles. Asterisk. We're not asking you to be anything but who you already are. Asterisk. He smiled, slow and rare. Then I'll come. They left the cabin the next morning, not in a rush. No dramatic goodbye. Jude just shut the door softly behind him and stood on the porch a moment longer than necessary. Asterisk. Mara placed a note inside tucked under the old photo on the mantel. Asterisk. He didn't ask what it said. Asterisk. The snow had slowed by the time they reached town. The girls sang quietly in the back seat. Brave was buckled between them. Asterisk. The shelter Mara had applied to had temporary housing. Warm, clean, safe. Asterisk. They gave Jude a room. Two said they could always use help with repairs. Saw it he could stay if he wanted. He said yes. Weeks passed. Asterisk. They didn't try to label what was happening. Asterisk. Mara found part-time work at the library. Jude fixed doors and shelves and fences and never asked for much in return. The girls started school. One evening, Mara came home with paint-streaked fingers and 2 brown envelopes. Asterisk. What are those? Jude asked, drying dishes. Letters, she said. She handed one to him. From the girls? He opened Ava's first. It was a drawing of the cabin. Of them, of Brave. At the bottom, she'd written, Thank you for making us warm again. Asterisk. Then Elias. Asterisk. Mom said you don't talk much. That's okay. You say everything just by being here. Asterisk. He stood still for a long time, the letters in hand. Then he folded them carefully and placed them in his notebook. Later that night, Mara came to sit beside him on the old couch in the shelter's lounge. Jude, she whispered. He looked at her. Asterisk. I don't want to go back to just surviving. Asterisk. You won't. Asterisk. I don't know what this is, she said, hand brushing his. But if it's something, I want to keep building it. One small kindness at a time. Asterisk. He nodded. Slowly. I'd like that. Asterisk. The snow fell again that weekend. The girls built a crooked snowman outside the shelter. Jude helped them add a stick for Brave to hold. Asterisk. At sunset. Mara took a photo of all 4 of them beside it. Asterisk. She didn't post it, didn't send it. She printed it and tucked it into the last page of her notebook. Asterisk. Months later, when they finally moved into a small rental house near the school, Jude built bunk beds again, this time with space for stars on the ceiling from the start. He found work fixing homes. She started hosting story time at the library. Asterisk. Sometimes, when the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, Jude would open the cedar chest he'd moved from the cabin. unfold a letter from his father, and sit in the hallway just breathing. Asterisk, he'd made it through, not by force, but by kindness returned, by voices in the rain, by a woman who didn't ask for saving, and two girls who gave him a name without needing to say it. Asterisk, and one night, long after the snow had melted and the world had turned green again, Mara handed him a new envelope. Asterisk, just one word on the front, stay. Asterisk inside. It was blank asterisk because some promises don't need ink to be kept. They just need someone to say, I'm not leaving. And mean it.